Hey guys, it's Bridget with San Diego Seed Company, and today on the farm I'm going to be talking about seed to harvest for your sunflowers. What are all the things you need to know from the moment you pick up that sunflower seed pack to the moment that you harvest the seeds in there, either for eating or for resowing in your garden. Let's jump into that, but before I do, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so you're notified anytime we put out a video, and so I can help you have the best garden possible in zone 9 and 10. Okay, so full disclosure, I'm from Kansas, the sunflower state. I love sunflowers. They're like the cheeriest, most fun flower that you can grow in the garden, and they come in so many different varieties, and they're kind of like the gateway flower into other flowers. If tomatoes are the gateway drug into other vegetables, well, sunflowers are usually the first thing you plant as a flower, and then you start planting tons of other flowers. It's one of the reasons why I love it. It's also just so fun to see them in the garden setting. They do great as a companion flower, so you can intercrop them with other other flowers or other vegetables that you're growing. You can also use them for cut flowers. So what are the things you need to know from the moment that you are considering buying sunflowers? I would ask yourself, what is the end goal with that planting? Are you planting them for cut flowers, or are you planting them for large seed heads that you're either going to consume the seeds of, or leave them in the garden for the birds, or potentially save them? And the reason being is they look very different depending on the variety. And this is a prime example. So these are some large Russian mammoths, and you can see it's a really big head. And the head starts to kind of fall over. This would not be a flower. Even this flower that the seeds haven't formed, this is not a great cut flower, okay? This is also a single stem sunflower. That's important to remember, that there's two different types. Single stem means you give one huge, large stem. Once you cut that, you're not getting a whole lot else. Branching sunflowers like these are, as the name suggests, they're branching. This is a great type of sunflower to have in the garden because you can cut and cut and cut and cut, and you get tons of blooms off of one single plant. So it's not a one and done. These varieties tend to have smaller heads because obviously it would be very difficult for this plant to support a massive sunflower head, which also means that the seeds inside are going to be smaller. So typically the sunflowers that you grow for eating the actual seed are going to be these very large blooms like this that are grown almost exclusively for the seeds inside. So keep that in mind. What is your end goal? Now you might be thinking, I want all of them. And you can see, like, we just planted a bunch of seeds on the farm. These were actually planted by students in one of our master classes. So if you took one and you're watching this video, here they are, blooming beautifully. We direct sowed these. And now they're actually getting to the part where we can think about saving the seeds. Before I get into that, let's talk about growing them. What do you need to know to grow sunflowers very successfully? So you go to the store, you buy your seed pack, or you shop with us online, you get your seeds, you read the instructions on the back, and almost all of them are going to say some key things. 1, sunflowers, as the name suggests, love sun. Take a look around. There's no shade right here or anywhere really on our farm. These want to grow in full sun during the warm season. Now in zone 9 and 10, oh my gosh, you can grow sunflowers almost year round. There is a period in the cool season where they're not going to grow as happy, and honestly it's not necessarily worth it. But really you can start these as early as February in zone 9 and 10 if you don't get any frost, and grow them well until November, and they're going to be very happy. The best way to plant them is just direct sow them. So we actually planted these directly in the soil. We prepped the soil, planted the seeds right into the ground. And we were able to do that because we have good irrigation. Sunflower seeds are large seeds, and they require a lot of moisture to germinate. So at no point can the seeds dry out while they're germinating, which is a rule for any vegetable or flower seed. But particularly sunflower seeds, because they're so big, they need a lot of moisture to break open this seed coat. So you can imagine this is what comes out of the packet. You direct sow that into the ground, you keep the ground moist, the seed breaks open, and what you're eating when you're eating sunflower seed kernels, you're actually eating the embryo. You're eating the inside of the sunflower. So direct sow them in full sun, ample water. Now let's say you're thinking, I don't have full sun. I live in an apartment. They can handle a little bit of shade, dappled sunlight, or maybe less hours of sunlight, but they are really gonna thrive and be like this, where they're just huge and so happy if they're exposed to full hours of the sun during the warm season. That's how you're gonna get something as big and as beautiful as this. All right, so you've planted the seed, they've germinated, they're starting to grow. What else do your sunflowers need to thrive? Well, they're really a pretty low input crop, and they're fascinating because they're actually used for bioremediation, so they can suck up a lot of heavy metals and other toxins from the ground. So if you want to go down that rabbit hole, there's so much to learn about sunflowers. It's incredible. But for the backyard gardener or even the beginning hobby farmer, they don't need a lot of extra input, so they really can grow on kind of the fringes of the garden where maybe the fertility isn't great. You can see we have this in the last row where the compost always gets a little thin. It seems like we kind of run out of a little bit of fertilizer, so the fertility and the soil is not as good on this end row, but they still do great. You can add a little bit of granular organic fertilizer. That's always going to help them grow, fight off pests and insects, because they're going to be really strong and hardy in how they grow. Probably the number one thing is this drip irrigation. Sunflowers and a lot of crops in your garden are going to be susceptible to powdery mildew, and the number one thing I see with gardeners is that they love to take their hose and just stand and water like this, which, trust me, it feels so good. I still love doing that, but it's a big no-no. Because if the leaves of the sunflower, or squash is another example, tomato, are watered like that, where they're wet day after day after day, it's going to be conducive to having more powdery mildew. So water at the soil level. That's going to help you with diseases. Fertilizing is going to help you have a robust plant that can actually fight off some pests. The plant just grows better and can defend itself. But there's some things that you can't really stop, especially in an organic garden. Here's a good example. See that? I can't tell you how many people will message me on social media and go, "What is eating my sunflowers? Oh, what spray do I need? I'm so angry." Well, there's no spray that will work, because this is actually finches. These are little cute little birds that will come in here and they will eat this tender green part of the leaf. And it's actually really fun to watch. So there's really not a whole lot you can do about that, and luckily you don't really care about this. This is not going to, yes, it may not look great, but if you're using for cut flowers, you're going to cut these anyways and strip off the leaves, so you don't care. And you're creating an ecosystem where other animals can thrive in your garden, which I say is win-win. So sunflowers are fabulous because of this exact reason. We are creating blooms for pollinators to enjoy. You can see this bee is just covered in pollen, and he's making a fast round of that bloom to get even more. So regardless of whether or not you're growing them for cut flowers or for seed, it's a really good flower in the garden that is a set it and forget it. You can plant it on the margins of the garden. It can grow. We're not going to do anything with this row. We literally just planted this for the bees, for an example of what we can do in our educational series. These are not, maybe I'll cut a few and I'll put them in some vases at home, but really this is just for beauty. We'll let these grow. They'll keep blooming. We will have excess seeds, which the birds will enjoy. This head will be eaten by tons of different birds that'll come along. Now, this is a good opportunity to talk quickly about seed saving. So if you wanted to save these seeds for replanting or eating, it's important that you let them get fully developed on here. And so once they get to this point where you can take your finger and you can break off the excess parts of the flower, this can be cut and it can be dried. Now, it is dried similarly to the way you would do, say, garlic. You want it to be in a area with good airflow, not direct sun, and make sure that it's low humidity. We've definitely made the mistake of cutting these and putting them in an area where there's not a good airflow, and they'll actually mold. Even though these feel dry, there is a lot of hidden moisture in here that if it's trapped, it will actually mold over. So if you were harvesting these for eating, you could actually take these now and dry the actual individual seeds. You could roast them, many different ways to eat them. Or if you're doing it for seed saving, I would just cut this, and what I like to do is hang it in an area of my garden where there's a really good cross breeze, where you can kind of keep insects, mice from eating it, and let it fully dry before you break this apart and then you save the seed. When you are saving the seed of sunflowers, like any seed, it's important that they're put in something that's paper so that they can breathe. I wouldn't use a plastic bag or even a glass jar. It'll trap moisture and these are more likely to mold. And putting a small desiccant pack in or something that will suck the moisture out will actually prolong the viability and the storage of your sunflower seeds so that you can plant them next season. All right, so if you've never grown sunflowers before, or even if you have, we want to hear what are some of the varieties that you love to grow, that you're totally obsessed with. And there's a long range of different types, from seed production, from forage sunflowers, or pro cut flowers. There's a lot of varieties that are grown specifically for vase life. What are you growing? What do you love? Let us know about it. And hey, maybe we'll try some of the varieties that you love here on our farm.